What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be finishing off the class guide series with the last class to cover being the specialist class. Now, if you haven't seen the other class guides, then there will be a card on screen at the end of the video for each of those guides, so make sure to check them out as well. Now, I have had a few people ask if I can make class guides for all of the Enforcer classes and Rocket Trooper classes as well, so if you do want me to continue this series with those classes, then make sure to let me know down in the comments section. If enough people decide they'd like to see some Enforcer and Rocket Trooper guides, then I'll definitely try and smash those out for you guys as well. So anyway, getting stuck straight into it, the Specialist class starts off with 150 HP, which was recently buffed from the previous 100 HP, so Specialists are definitely a lot more handy now than they were just a few weeks ago. This is a huge buff for the Specialist class. This means that they can no longer be one hit killed by anything in the game, including lightsabers. And the only way they can be one hit killed is from a sniper headshot, so they're definitely a whole lot better now that they've been given a buff. Now, just like every other class in the game, the Specialist has 4 weapons to choose from, and for the most part they're all actually fairly unique from each other. They're all sniper style blasters, and they're definitely meant to be used at a bit of a longer range, but you can still do alright at closer range so long as you can get yourself in the right spots on the map. The base weapon is sort of like an all-round blaster. It deals a medium amount of damage and has a pretty fast rate of fire compared to most of the other specialist blasters, and all in all this is a really decent weapon all round, as you'd expect for the base weapon for any of these classes. It's usually a 3-shot kill in most situations, and at a longer range the damage does drop off just a little bit, but it's definitely still a really decent gun for long range gunfights, and definitely suits the specialist class well, especially now that they've been given a health buff, as you can get away with using it in a bit more of a close quarters playstyle. The second blaster for the specialist class is a little more similar to what you'd expect from a sniper, with a higher damage output and slower rate of fire, and it's really similar to the 4th weapon in the class. However, it's definitely not as good, so this would probably have to be the worst weapon for this class. In saying that, it is still a pretty decent weapon, but once you've unlocked the 4th blaster for the class, then this one sort of becomes obsolete when compared with the last one. The third blaster for the Specialist class is the A280 CFE, and if you're more of a fan of close quarters style of play when you're playing as the Specialist, then this is definitely the one for you. This one's more like an assault rifle rather than a sniper due to the fast rate of fire and the lower damage output, except the range is still really decent, so you can still get away with sniping. It'll just deal a lot less damage the further away you are. It also becomes an absolute beast once you unlock the burst fire mod, and if you are going to use this weapon, then I definitely recommend using the burst fire at all times. It's an absolute beast of a weapon, and it can do a lot of damage at close range too, so you can almost play purely an aggressive playstyle when you're using this blaster with the burst fire mod. Last but definitely not least, we have the NT242, which is exactly what you would expect from a sniper rifle. It has the highest damage in the game, dealing a whopping 128 damage, and if you land a critical shot with this bad boy, you can do some serious damage to heroes or even vehicles as well. So this blaster is definitely one of the better ones in the game. If you like to play more of a traditional sniper role, then this is definitely the blaster for you. It dominates the other 2 long range weapons in almost every aspect, so unless you prefer a more close quarters playstyle, then I definitely have to recommend this one for you. So now we're going to move on to the star cards, and rather than going through every single star card, I'm actually just going to list off 3 different combinations that are a good starting point. But just like the weapons, I definitely recommend looking at each and every star card and figuring out which ones best suit your playstyle. Before I get stuck into the star cards though, I'm going to just quickly go over the specialist base abilities just for anyone who's a little newer to the game. So the L1 ability is the shock grenade, and this is a pretty decent little grenade that temporarily slows down anyone who's in the area of effect when it goes off, as well as slightly damaging the enemies as well, so this can be pretty handy to throw into high traffic areas and cause a bit of panic for your enemies. The L1R1 ability is called Infiltration, and this is just a really underrated ability that a lot of people seem to overlook when playing as a specialist. When the ability is active, you'll be undetectable on your enemy's radar, it'll mark all enemies on your minimap, as well as giving you increased speed and a really useful 3-round burst weapon to use in close quarters situations. This would have to be up there with one of the better abilities in the game, so definitely make sure to use it in any close quarters areas where you don't feel too comfortable with your normal blaster. The R1 ability is called the Thermal Binoculars, and again this is actually one of the most underrated and probably underused abilities in the game. This lets you see any enemy on the map through the walls using thermal vision, and if you have a direct line of sight on any enemy, then you can hold the R2 button to lock onto them, which will then outline them in red for you and the rest of your team as well. Honestly, I never really used to use this ability, but it gives you the chance to see enemies through walls and allows you to know when they're going to be coming around a corner. So you can use it to find them and then equip your blaster and get ready to take them out before they even have a chance to fight back. So now moving on to the star cards, and the first build I'm going to show you guys is more of an objective based build. So this is going to be perfect when you're using the A280 and rushing up amongst the objectives. The first card for this build is the Stealth Star card, and this is going to make you stay off enemy radars when you're firing your weapon, which is a lot more handy than you might think. This means you can get up on the front lines and defend or attack objectives, and unless the enemy has a direct line of sight on you, then they're going to have no idea that you're there, which gives you a massive advantage and often leads to catching your enemies off guard, which is always good when you're pushing an objective. The next card for this build is the Bodyguard Star card, which I have mentioned in all my other objective builds as well, and this card makes it so that you take less damage from explosives or toxins, which again is really helpful when you're playing the objective. The last card for this build is the Trip Mine card, and exactly as it sounds, this just gives you an ability to place down a trip mine that replaces your R1 ability. This is super handy to put down in a tactical spot near an objective, or to cover your back when you're sitting in an area defending an objective as well. Now the next build I'm going to show you guys is more of a Slayer type build, with the focus really being just to survive and go on some really big kill streaks, which is always a lot of fun, especially when you're playing as the specialist. So the first card in this build is the Stealth Star card again, and as I mentioned, this keeps you off the radar of your enemies. Not only that, but it also hugely increases the amount of damage you deal with a melee strike. With this card fully upgraded, you'll deal 125 damage, which is enough to take out any class in only 2 melee strikes, which is absolutely crazy. Most of the time, if you rush someone and melee them, they're going to try and melee you back, except before they get a chance to land a second hit on you, they'll already be dead. And even if they do manage to land a second strike, it won't kill you anyway, so you'll be able to take out so many enemies with this little tactic, and it's definitely a lot harder to defend than you'd think, especially with the next card for this build as well. The next card is the Personal Shield card, and as I'm sure most of you already know, this just pops a shield around you that makes you immune to damage until the shield is depleted. This combined with the last card means you can pop the shield, charge your enemy and melee them, and most of the time you're going to be able to take them out before they can even deal any damage at all. The last card for this build is called Brawler, and what this is going to do is give you a huge amount of health each time you kill someone with a melee attack, which obviously ties in perfectly with this build. This one kind of speaks for itself. Each time you melee kill someone, you're going to regain some health, so this is just going to keep you alive a lot longer and give you an awesome chance of going on some really mean kill streaks. Now the last build I'm going to show you guys is more of a battle point based build, and if you use these cards then you're going to be able to rack up battle points a whole lot quicker than you can without these cards equipped. The first card you want to choose for this build is the Bounty Hunter card, which I'm sure you all know by now since I've mentioned it in all my other class guides, and to put this simply, this card just increases the rate at which you'll earn battle points, which is exactly what we're trying to do with this build. The second card you're going to need to choose is the Improved Shock Grenade card, and again this one's pretty obvious. It'll just increase the amount of battle points you'll earn from damaging enemies with this shock grenade, as it's going to do more damage and also damage more enemies within the area, therefore more battle points for you. The last card for this build is the Improved Thermal Binoculars card, and this is just going to work exactly the same as the previous card. It'll increase the duration that enemies stay spotted, meaning they're much more likely to be taken out by you or one of your teammates, leading to way more battle points from kills and assists. Now, it is a good idea to try some of these star card combinations, however I do also recommend just playing around with every single star card and figuring out which ones best suit you. It all comes down to your playstyle, so even though these 3 builds are very handy to use, they might not suit you as much as they suit others. So that's going to be it for today's class guide, guys. Hopefully some of these tips helped you out, because the Specialist class is definitely one of the funnest classes to play as now that it's been given a buff, and it can properly compete with the other classes in the game. As I mentioned before, if you do have any of your own tips, then make sure to leave them down in the comments section. I definitely would have missed some handy cards in this guide, as I can't go over everything in a short video, so make sure to give us your own tips as well. If you're new to the channel, then feel free to subscribe to see the rest of my guide videos, and make sure to turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on anything new. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.